It's opening night of the NBA, and if you're anything like me, it feels like Christmas came early. What's up, kings and queens? It's your boy Dan from Dark Previews, and in this video, I'm going to share with you some of my best bets with detailed analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. Now, I know a lot of you guys love my basketball content, and the way I break down a bet and how I talk about matchups and play types. Well, today, gents, I'm going to take you through the tool that makes all of this possible. And if that sounds interesting, let's go. Now, this is Props Madness. It gives you all the advanced data that you need to make the best bets possible when it comes to NBA props. If you're interested in checking this out, once I show you how to use it, they have a free 7-day trial. And if you use the code DAFT when you sign up, you're going to get a 25% discount that you're not going to find anywhere else on YouTube. Check it out. The link's in the video description below. Now, the first game that we're looking through here is the Boston Celtics versus the New York Knicks. Now, the Knicks made some big changes. They brought in Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns, sacrificed a little bit of depth, but much stronger team on paper. The Boston Celtics running back the same squad that they won the chip with last year, although they are starting the season without Kristaps Porzingis. I still think they play well. They won 10 out of their last 12 games without Porzingis in the lineup, and deservedly so. They are favorites in this match. Now, I've got two picks in this game. Now, let's get into it. The first one that we're talking about here is Jalen Brunson. I like his over 27.5 points in this game. Now, the first thing I want to call out here is looking at the head-to-head numbers. So he's covered this in 2 out of 5 games against the Boston Celtics last season. The 2 games where he did happen to cover it without Julius Randle, scoring 34 and 39 points, established himself as one of the elite guards in the league without Julius in the lineup. Now, he does have Karl Anthony Towns in the lineup, but he's nowhere near the volume shooter that Julius Randle was, and he can't create his shot the way that Julius did either. And what we saw in the preseason, Jalen Brunson, the clear number 1 option in this team. I think this matchup for Jalen Brunson is absolutely excellent. And I'm going to show you how to use Props Madness to really pull out the data that we're looking for and why this matchup is so great. So looking at Props Madness, we can see a whole lot of green in this graph, right? But a lot of these numbers that we see here, a lot of it has to do with the playoffs. So the first thing I want to do, let's just talk regular season data firstly. Now, the next thing about Props Madness that you can't find anywhere else is this stuff on shot zones and it's on play types analysis. So if we look a little bit deeper at Jalen Brunson and the work that he did last year, we can see that he scores 31% of his points in the paint, but outside of the restricted area, and also 30% of his points above the break, right? So that's 61% of his points right there. And if we look at the Boston Celtics and how they play defense in these zones, we can see bottom 10 points in the paint outside of the restricted area, and one of the worst teams in the league defending the mid-range and also above the break, right? So already the matchup is looking good for Jalen Brunson. Now we dive a little bit further to look at his play type analysis, and you can see what types of actions does he score a lot of his points from, right? Now we can see last season, Jalen Brunson scored 11.2 points. 33% of his buckets came as the pick and roll ball handler. And if you look at how the Boston Celtics played defense, they were one of the worst teams in the league at defending the pick and roll. Now, as great as Boston was defensively, they allowed that to happen. It's not like they were bad at it and they don't know what to do. It's all done by design if you watch the way that they play. So Boston, they do switch that pick and roll a lot of the time. And when Porzingis is there, they play a whole lot of drop coverage. And I doubt we see a lot of Horford pressing up on Jalen Brunson on the perimeter either, right? So this Boston Celtics team, very happy to let players like Jalen Brunson play one-on-one in the pick and roll. If there's drop coverage, if there's a switch, they're not going to aggressively force that ball out of his hands, because what's going to happen, they're going to leave wide open 3-pointers in the corner, right? A high percentage shot. You can see on this shot zone here that the Knicks, they were one of the best teams at defending the corner all season long, and it won them a chip, right? So why would they change? So I expect to see Jalen Brunson here bury them with a whole lot of 2-pointers, possibly get to the free throw line, but he's going to play a lot of one-on-one, and I think he's going to get a whole lot of shots. Now, another thing I like to think about here is that Karl Anthony Towns, him joining the team is a bit of a tricky one. I won't lie to you here. He could take some shots from Brunson, But I also think he's got a difficult matchup here. The Boston Celtics, they do play 5 out on the defense. They're happy to defend the perimeter. And Karl Anthony Towns, not as good as Julius Randle is at creating his own shot. I think the benefit of having Karl Anthony Towns in this lineup is we're going to see him spread the floor, and he's going to give Jalen Brunson even more space to operate in his favorite spots. So one great thing that you can do with this tool as well is through all the advanced filters. Now you can actually do filters based on how teams play defense according to the player's predominant play type. So we know that Jalen Brunson does a whole lot of work as a pick and roll ball handler, right? And we know that the Celtics, one of the worst teams at doing so. If we wanted to, we could check to see how does Jalen Brunson perform against the bottom 10 teams at defending the pick and roll. Now, looking at the data already, we can see he played the bottom 10 teams 27 times last season in the regular season, and we can see that he averaged 32.6 points per game, hitting this in 18 out of 27 games. Now, another cool thing you could do is really isolate the games that he didn't play without Julius Randle, and I think I remember he got injured towards the end of January, and that's when Jalen Brunson really took off. So if I count the numbers here, we're looking at 12 games that Jalen Brunson played without Julius Randle in this matchup. So you can see here in the last 12 games, these are all his last 12 games against the bottom 10 teams at defending the pick and roll. Last 12 games without Julius Randle in the regular season, Jalen Brunson covered this line in 10 out of 12 games, averaging 36.8 points per game. And 2 of those games include against the Boston Celtics. So Jalen Brunson over his points prop, one of my favorite plays, and props madness. It breaks down the data for this type of matchup perfectly. I love it. Let's get to the next one. So we're staying in the same game. I'll toggle it to dark mode. Why the hell not? And the next play I'm looking at here is Karl Anthony Towns over his rebounds prop. Now, this opened at 10.5, and it didn't take it long to move to 11.5. And still, at 11.5, I'm willing to take it, right? Now, if you just looked at the raw numbers, it doesn't matter what website you use to check the data for Karl Anthony Towns rebounds, it's not going to look great. His rebound numbers clearly a lot lower than the 11.5 that is set, but he's on a brand new team now. Things are very different. If you paid any attention to the preseason for the New York Knicks, you'd see that Karl Anthony Towns rebounding like a fucking animal. So he covered this line in 3 out of the 4 games, right? And in all of the games where he played a decent number of minutes, he easily covered this 12 rebound line. At first glance, this line does seem quite high for Cat. I get it. But you have to keep in mind that he spent the last few years playing alongside Rudy Gobert. Now, I've run the numbers for Karl Anthony Towns, not on props now, madness, doing my own little research here. And Karl Anthony Towns, his rebound numbers without Rudy Gobert are almost at 12 rebounds per game in his career. So he's an excellent rebounder, especially as the only big on this Knicks starting team, surrounded by a whole lot of perimeter players. They're not very strong rebounders outside of Josh Hart, of course, but Karl Anthony Towns, I think, is going to have an excellent rebounding season. Now, he played against the Celtics twice last season. He recorded 10 and 13 rebounds in those games. Now, what's important to note, the 13 rebound effort was the game without Rudy Gobert. So we already see the difference if you look at his numbers with and without Rudy. I feel like the risk in this play for Karl Anthony Towns, though, is that the Boston Celtics do tend to play 5 out on offense. So he may not be in ideal rebounding position. But the positive angle for Karl Anthony Towns in this play is that he's going to be the biggest fucker on the floor when he's out there. So I do like he's over 11.5 rebounds. You can get that for close to plus money. It's got nothing to do with analytics. I just love the spot here for Karl Anthony Towns. Pumping the brakes real quick to remind you guys that my season package is available. The majority of my straight plays will be free and out on YouTube, but my parlays is where the profit really comes from, and I share them all on this package. So if you're someone like me who likes to get down on the NBA every single day, then this package is for you. So use the code MJ23 and ride with me this NBA season. Let's go. And next up, we're looking at the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves obviously traded Karl Anthony Towns. They got Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle now. The Lakers got a brand new coach in JJ Redick. They drafted Bronny James, Dalton Connect. Made some changes, right? But ultimately, where I landed on this game is on Anthony Davis. And I like his over 25.5 points. Now, my reason for this has less to do with the data and more so around the matchup that he has with Rudy Gobert. Now, I'm not sure if you know this, but Anthony Davis, he's exploited this matchup against Rudy Gobert many times before. I took a dive into the numbers, and since he's joined the Los Angeles Lakers, he's played Rudy Gobert 9 times. He's covered 25.5 points in 6 out of those 9 games. 2 out of the 3 games where he went under this line against Rudy Gobert, he happened to play less than 20 minutes. So this matchup is excellent against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And if you use Props Madness, you can see why down here. Now, outside of free throws, which the Minnesota Timberwolves not ranking very well at, they are terrible in pick and roll man coverage. So one thing I noticed throughout this preseason is JJ Redick's new offense. It involves a whole lot of screening, and it's a lot of guards screening for bigs. It's actually quite similar to what the Denver Nuggets do. And I can see Anthony Davis and LeBron getting some mismatches in this game. Now, one thing I wanted to call out, I do like LeBron's over in his points too. I think he and Anthony Davis are going to get some buckets in this game. But talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves, I do love the perimeter defense that they do have. But this Wolves team, they're missing Karl Anthony Towns. It does leave them a lot smaller down low. This Lakers offense has a whole lot of movement, and I can see them hunting some mismatches for Anthony Davis. Now, this T-Wolves defense, they're actually ranked top 3 in points in the restricted area. And the reason why I call that out is because Anthony Davis scores 60% of his points in the restricted area. And that should scare us from betting on him, right? But I've done a deep dive here on Props Madness, and I've already got the filters up here, and you can see a whole lot of green on this screen. So let me talk you through what I've done. Firstly, looking at regular season stats, I broke down his minutes to when he plays between 30 and 42 minutes. Now, keeping in mind, he played 39 minutes in 3 games against Minnesota last season. So I think between 30 and 42 is a really good range. Now, I've also applied a filter here where we're looking at his dominant shooting zone, which is the restricted area. And I'm looking at how Anthony Davis played when he versed the top 10 teams at limiting points in the restricted area. So most people will say that is a tough matchup. But looking at how Anthony Davis has performed in these tough matchups when he sees between 30 and 42 minutes, we can see he's been a fucking beast. He hit this line in 15 of 21 games last season, a 71% hit rate where he averaged 26.4 points per game. So I know the matchup might be difficult, but he's killed these types of matchups. Rudy Gobert, he's a great rim protector, but not on somebody like Anthony Davis. So I like Anthony Davis to continue to massacre the Wolves in this game. Let's go. Give it to me. Ride AD and his unibrow on opening night. Now, my next pick and my final pick, we're looking at Bronny James over 4.5 turnovers. It's paying minus 1,000. I'm just kidding. That's slack. Everybody beats up on Bronny James online, and that was a bit of a cheap shot for me. But no, my last pick is actually on Dante DiVincenzo, and I do like his over 14.5 points plus assists. This opened up a lot lower than that, but this line started to move immediately. But I do still think there's value taking Dante at this spot. And I'm not necessarily relying on the numbers from last season, right? He was playing a completely different role in New York. They had a whole lot of injuries. Dante was playing close to 40 minutes a game. If you look at his graphs on any app, any website, you'll probably be seeing green everywhere, right? He's not going to play 40 minutes for this Minnesota team. But after doing some analysis on his preseason numbers, I got to tell you, I'm somewhat aroused by this. He averaged 12 points, over 4 assists per game, and he only played about 20 to 22 minutes, something like that. So he didn't play too many minutes. Now, Dante DiVincenzo, given his ability to spread the floor, but also handle the rock, I think he sees at least 25 minutes per game this season. Now, if I do some hood math and I break down his averages per minute during the preseason and I increase his minutes, he should be close to about 18 points plus assists. Now, this Minnesota coach fucking loves Dante. If you've seen the media, if you've seen his interview, absolutely loves Dante as if it was his own son. and I think he gets a whole lot of minutes. And I think he's going to play that backup point guard role behind an aging Mike Conley. So I do think the opportunity is going to be there for Dante to continue to score, but also to get some assists as well. Now, if we look at the Lakers, and the Lakers last season, they were terrible defensively, especially defending guards. If we look at the play type analysis here, we can see that they were mid-tier when it came to defending spot-up shooters, which is a key component of Dante DiVincenzo's scoring package. But one of the worst teams in transition, Dante can get you there. And in handoffs, they're one of the worst teams in defending that too. And that's, if you look at his top three, if you look at his top four scoring play types, Dante, it's clear to say he's got an advantageous matchup here. Now, 50% of his points were scored above the break. And if you look at the Los Angeles Lakers, one of the worst teams in the league at defending above the break. Now, the Lakers, yes, they've changed coaches, right? But they didn't make too many changes in their backcourt unless you think Bronny James counts. They did upgrade their coach, right? But based on everything I saw in that stupid podcast, actually, it's not stupid, it's pretty good. But JJ Redick and LeBron James, that podcast that they do, what's pretty clear is that they love offense. I think 90% of the conversations were about offensive sets after timeout plays. Whole thing was about offense, and I thought it was great. But there wasn't much talk about defense. I think the Lakers still leak some points. And I think Dante, he should be able to cover this 14.5 points plus assists in points alone. But given his new role as a backup facilitator, taking the assists on top of his points, it does give me some comfort here. So take Dante DiVincenzo over 14.5 points plus assists. I think he comes out and kills it. I feel like it won't be long until we see this line a lot higher. 17.5, 16.5. That would make me question it a little bit. But at 14.5, I absolutely love it. I think the matchup is great, and I think he's going to see some opportunities here. So that's all I've got for opening night on the NBA. Not going too hard on it. I do have some parlays. That's already been shared with my VIP, my season package members. If you're interested, check that out. Video description below. Use the code MJ23 to get a 60% discount and ride with me this NBA season. If you want to check out Props Madness, this awesome tool, you've got a 7-day free trial. That link's in the video description as well. And use the code DAFT when you sign up, and you'll get 25% off. You won't find that discount anywhere else on YouTube. Now, let's go.